My dear friend, this message didn't find you by accident. It's not just another video. It's a divine appointment, a holy interruption in the rhythm of your weariness. Because there's something God needs you to know, and not just with your ears, but with your soul. The chapter you thought was over is not the end. What the enemy called final, God is stepping in to rewrite. You've stood at the edge of endings you didn't choose. You've carried silence where there should have been answers, sorrow where there should have been closure. People walked away, doors shut. You buried dreams and whispered prayers that never seemed to echo back. And somewhere deep down, you started to believe maybe this is all there is. Maybe this is who you'll always be. But hear me, that's not the voice of God. That's the sound of spiritual sabotage. And today, God is reclaiming his pen. He's not just offering comfort. He's stepping into the very chapters you tried to close, into the places you thought were too broken to revisit. And he's saying, this is not finished, not with me. The final word belongs to the one who wrote your first breath. So if any part of this speaks to your heart, even just a quiet part that's still hoping, I want to ask you to do 3 simple, sacred things, like this message. Share it with someone who's carrying quiet heartbreak, and drop 777 in the comments. That's heaven's number, the sign that says, God's not done with me yet. Let's take this walk together. You ready? And now, beloved, as we step deeper into this message, I want you to know something sacred, something personal. God is not standing at the finish line, waiting for you to make it through on your own. He's not pacing at a distance, waiting for you to prove you're strong enough, holy enough, healed enough to be worth his attention. No, he's right there, in the exact places where you thought the story was over, in the corners where your strength gave out, at the point where your prayers dried up and your voice fell silent, in the moments when you couldn't cry anymore because the tears had already carved quiet rivers down your face in the dark. That's where he is. That's where he's always been. You see, people may forget. They may get uncomfortable with your grief, impatient with your process. They may look away when the pain gets too real. But not God, not the author of your soul. He remembers every step you took toward hope, even when your legs gave out halfway there. He stood watch while others walked away. He lingered in the place where you collapsed, not to condemn you, but to cover you. He was there when your confidence unraveled and your belief curled up under the weight of unanswered questions. And even when you couldn't bring yourself to speak, when the words got caught behind your disappointment, he heard the prayers you didn't say, the ache you swallowed so often it became part of your breathing. He sees it all, not just the part you bring to the altar on Sunday, not just the smile you've mastered in public. No, he sees the nights when you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if any of it still matters. He knows about that moment you stopped asking because silence started to feel safer than hope. And beloved, he doesn't flinch at the truth of what you feel. He doesn't shame you for wondering if he still listens. In fact, he draws nearer to you in that very question. You may have stopped believing in miracles, but he never stopped believing in you. You may have buried dreams with dates you no longer mention, but he has not stopped tending the soil where he planted promise. He knows you've been carrying pain so long, it's taken the shape of you, like it's something you wear now. but God. God sees the real you underneath the armor, beneath the resignation, beyond the routines that look like strength but were really just survival. He's never looked away from your suffering, never skipped past the chapters that made you feel too broken to finish the story. He's traced every scar, every wound wrapped in silence, every "I'm fine" that covered a soul slowly unraveling. And still, he remains. Not with a clipboard, not with judgment, but with a kind of tenderness that doesn't fade, that doesn't get tired, that doesn't retreat when your faith gets fragile. Some of you have locked up entire rooms in your soul, swept them clean and shut them tight, convinced that going back there will only break you all over again. But God never left those places. He waited in the silence. He sat beside you in the rooms no one else knew existed. And not once did he see your loneliness as unimportant. Not once did he call your aching heart a burden. He knows the difference between waiting and merely enduring. And he's been present in both. Even when your prayers got quieter, even when you stopped asking because you didn't want another disappointment, he still leaned in, not with pressure, but with peace. Not to fix you, but to simply sit with you. Your confusion didn't drive him away. Your anger didn't offend him. Your exhausted hope, the kind you barely recognize anymore, didn't make him flinch. In fact, he calls that hope holy, even in its smallest, most fragile form. He welcomes it all, not because he needs anything from you, but because he refuses to leave you in the dark you never chose. You see, the world gives up too easily. It rushes healing. It calls your depth too much. But God enters your depths. He dwells in the places others skipped over. He remembers the weight of every tear you buried in your chest. He honors the labor of staying alive when nothing made sense. So if you've been wondering whether he noticed, whether he still hears, whether the silence means he left, let this be the moment you remember. He never did. He was there at your lowest. And he's still here now, not waiting for you to climb back to the surface on your own, but holding space for you to realize you were never alone in the fall. And if you're still with me now, I want to lean in even closer and say this to your spirit. You don't have to keep pretending to be okay. Not with God. Not here. Not anymore. There is no medal in heaven for hiding your wounds, no extra blessing for burying your pain beneath a polished smile. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for honesty. He's not asking you to perform strength. He's inviting you to be real, to show him the truth of what life has done to you, the parts you've stitched together with silence just to keep going. He already sees the heaviness you carry, the exhaustion in your bones, the private battles you fight before the world wakes up. And instead of turning away, he moves closer. You see, we've been taught by the world to clean ourselves up before we come to God, to look whole before we say we're hurting. But our Father never asked us to be spotless. He asked us to be sincere, and there's a difference. There's a sacred kind of beauty in the way you keep waking up, even when your hope feels too thin to hold. There's power in the quiet decision to keep showing up, to keep trying, even when your soul is running on empty. He notices that. The world may not applaud it, but heaven records it. Not a single ounce of your effort to keep going is wasted in his eyes. So, if you've been measuring your worth by how strong you appear to others, let that scale break right now. God doesn't need your performance. He wants your presence. Even if your presence is tired, even if your faith feels frail, even if all you've got left is a whisper of trust, buried somewhere under the rubble of disappointment, he still calls it precious. There is no shame in being broken. There is no failure in needing healing. You don't have to downplay what's hurt you just to be seen as mature. The Lord never once asked you to be unshaken, only to let Him into the places that shook you. So many of us have been carrying this quiet belief that we're too complicated for God, too messy, too unsure. But beloved, He already knows every layer of who you are. The questions you've never said out loud, the doubt you've dressed in spiritual language, the longing that still aches under years of silence. And still, He remains. Not to demand more of you, but to love the you that doesn't know what to say. The you that's tired of pretending. The you that feels like you're failing simply because your joy doesn't come easy anymore. There's nothing weak about that. In fact, it takes incredible strength, to be honest. It takes courage to admit you're weary. But that kind of honesty, that sacred confession, it's what opens the door to healing. And God walks through that door every time. He meets you not in the sanitized version of your life, but in the raw, unfiltered reality of what it costs you to keep breathing some days. And He says, I see you. Not just your faith, but your fight. Not just your hope, but your heaviness. Every tear you've hidden, every sigh you've swallowed, every night you got through by nothing but grace. He holds it all with care. So don't be afraid to let Him see the full weight of what you carry. You've been strong for long enough. This is the place where you get to exhale. This is the place where your wounds are not reasons for rejection, but invitations for God's nearness. Let that truth settle on your soul. You are not disqualified by what hurts. You are loved in your unfinished state. And there is nothing fragile in His love that would cause Him to flinch at your pain. And if you've ever felt like your doubts disqualify you, if you've ever wondered whether your frustration with God makes you less faithful, I want you to hear me clearly right now. It doesn't. Your anger does not frighten Him. Your questions don't push Him away. Your silence isn't a wall He can't get through. In fact, beloved, the very things you thought would make Him leave are the places He draws nearest. Because to God, your struggle is not rebellion, it's relationship. It's intimacy wrapped in ache. It's the sound of a soul that still cares enough to wrestle. You see, God doesn't flinch when you ask the hard things. He doesn't pull back when your prayers turn into complaints, when your faith sounds more like a groan than a song. He doesn't recoil when you admit that you're disappointed, not in life, but in Him. He doesn't leave the room when the words come out jagged, when your trust is too tired to speak eloquently. In fact, that's when He leans in. That's when He whispers back, not with judgment, but with presence. Because He knows the difference between defiance and desperation. He knows when your anger is born from heartbreak. He understands that sometimes the most sacred form of faith is not a praise lifted high, but a sigh whispered in the dark. Lord, I don't understand, but I'm still here. And even in that, even when your voice shakes, even when your fists clench, He stays. He stays because He sees what's underneath. He sees the bruised hope still beating beneath the frustration, the love that didn't die but got buried under years of disappointment. So I want to tell you this with tenderness and with truth. You don't have to sanitize your soul to bring it before Him. You don't have to get rid of the hard feelings to be heard. The questions that haunt you, the fears you try to silence, the anger that rises up when prayers go unanswered, Those are not disqualifications. They are invitations. Invitations to deeper relationship, to raw, honest communion with a God who does not shut the door when you get real. Because right there, in the middle of what you thought would drive him away, that's where he starts writing again. Right in the ruins. Right in the wreckage. Right in the very spot where you gave up and walked away. He stayed. He didn't see the end. He saw a new beginning where you saw failure. He saw foundation. Where you saw too late, he saw just in time. And he's still there, standing in the ashes, holding the pen, ready to write what comes next. You thought the story was over because of what you felt. But feelings aren't final. Emotions aren't eternal. They pass like weather, but his presence stays. You thought he was done with you because you were done with yourself. But he never signed off. He never closed the book. And no amount of bitterness or questioning or spiritual exhaustion could erase the name he's written on your heart. So if all you have right now is a furrowed brow and a wounded spirit, bring that. If all you can offer is a confused silence or an angry prayer, bring that too. He welcomes it all. Because the truth is, beloved, your wrestling doesn't repel him. It reveals how deeply you long to be seen, to be understood, to be held by something real. And in that place where you thought faith was failing, God is quietly proving that he never was. And maybe by now, something inside you is stirring. A memory, a question, a quiet ache that's been there all along. Because the truth is, some of us have been carrying the past like it's welded into our bones. We've learned to navigate life not by trust, but by caution. Not by openness, but by defense. Because there were seasons, long ones, when trust cost too much, when vulnerability opened the door to pain that never said goodbye. And so we adapted. We built habits, not of hope, but of protection. We didn't call it fear. We called it wisdom. We didn't call it retreat. We called it maturity. But underneath all that language, we were just trying to survive what broke us. God sees that. He sees every layer of armor you wrapped around your heart. Not to deceive, not to manipulate, but to function in a world that didn't handle your tenderness with care. He watched you adjust yourself to fit rooms that didn't know how to hold you. He saw the way you made yourself small in places that should have celebrated your presence. And still, he doesn't rush your healing. He doesn't demand that you tear the walls down overnight. No, beloved. He approaches softly, patiently, steadily, because he knows what built those walls in the first place. He was there the first time trust let you down. He was there the moment a word cut deeper than it should have. The day a door closed that was never supposed to shut. He remembers the weight of the promise that was broken and the echo of that goodbye you never got to say. And while the world moved on, quickly, impatiently, even unknowingly, he stayed in that moment with you. Because to him, it wasn't just another chapter. It was a wound. And wounds, when they're left unacknowledged, don't disappear. They go underground. They become roots. Roots that quietly shape the way we walk into every room, the way we speak every word, the way we offer or withhold love. But here's the thing. God never meant for you to carry those memories alone. He never asked you to clean them up or file them away like they didn't matter. In fact, he honors them. He honors the nights when grief wrapped itself around your chest so tight you weren't sure you could breathe. He honors the mornings you rose anyway, Still broken, still unsure, still afraid, but willing to take one more step. That's not weakness. That's resilience. The kind heaven notices when the world doesn't. You see, we've learned to minimize our hope so that disappointment doesn't sneak up on us again. We rehearse old failures like they're scripts, replaying the scenes in our minds where it all fell apart. And we tell ourselves, if I just expect less, maybe it won't hurt as much next time. But that's not healing. That's just hiding. And God doesn't want your healing to be partial. He doesn't want your peace to come with disclaimers. He wants you whole. Even if right now you can't name every place you're hurting, even if pain has become more fluent in silence than in any confession, God understands the language. You don't have to translate your wounds for Him. He speaks the dialect of your soul. He's fluent in the tremble of your voice, in the pause before you say what you're really feeling, in the way you deflect compliments because deep down, you don't feel worthy. He sees it all, and still, He stays. So, if you find yourself tracing old patterns, returning to the same caution, the same fear, the same quiet what-if questions, He doesn't call that failure. He calls it a history, a map of where you've been, not a prison where you're meant to stay, because what you've been through may explain your hesitancy, but it doesn't define your destiny. You were never created to live behind locked doors. You were created for connection, for communion, for the kind of safety that doesn't require constant vigilance. And yes, maybe you've trained yourself to anticipate pain, to read every room, every face, every shift in tone, like your safety depends on it. Maybe you've become the kind of person who's always scanning for the next letdown, the next crack in the promise, the next reason to retreat before it hurts. But God says, you don't have to live like that anymore. In Isaiah 43:18-19, He says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Not I might, not if you're perfect." He says, I am. Present tense, right now, even in the middle of your fear. So what if today you allowed yourself to believe, just for a moment, that you are not too far gone to trust again? What if the God who knows every scar could become the one place where you don't have to brace for impact? What if your defense mechanisms, as wise as they once were, are no longer necessary for the season ahead? That doesn't mean throwing caution to the wind. It means letting love be louder than fear. It means trusting not because everything feels safe, but because God is. And if all you have is a flicker of willingness, not bold faith, not loud declarations, but a quiet openness, that is enough. That is holy ground. Because God doesn't meet you in your perfection. He meets you in your pause. In the moment you consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you can begin to lay it down, not all at once, but slowly, gently, piece by piece. Let Him be the first one you let into that room you've kept sealed off. Let His presence be the place where the walls start to soften, not from force, but from compassion. He's not asking for the strong version of you. He's asking for the real you. The one who remembers too much, who guards too hard, who hopes so softly you barely dare call it hope. That's the version He wants. That's the version He came for. And that's the version He'll never walk away from. And now, beloved, we come to this sacred truth. Memory was never meant to hurt you. Those old echoes, those moments you wish you could unlive, unsay, unsee, they don't have to be a curse. You were never asked to forget in order to be free. God is not calling you to erase your story. He's asking to enter it. Not just the highlights, not just the breakthrough moments you share in testimony, but the closed chapters, the torn out pages, the sentences that trail off with no resolution. That's where He wants to meet you. You see, we were taught to shut the door on our pain, to tidy up our hearts before we let God in. But God never asked you to clean up before He came close. He's not afraid of the mess. In fact, He lingers in the rooms you've long since abandoned. The ones you locked because they held too much grief, too much shame, too much what could have been. He waits there, not with condemnation, but with compassion. He's not rushing you past those places. He's not trying to force healing before your heart's ready. He's simply staying, present, patient, persistent. He remembers the stories you survived, the ones you don't even tell anymore because they still make your chest tighten. He was there when your voice shook, when your trust cracked, when your hope folded in on itself. He was the witness to the heartbreak that no one else noticed. And He didn't flinch. He didn't withdraw. He stayed. Because those moments, however painful, are part of what shaped you, and He honors them, not as failures, but as battlegrounds where your spirit fought to survive. So no, He's not trying to make you forget. He's trying to help you remember differently, through His eyes, through His love. Because when you remember with Him, you don't get stuck in the pain. You walk through it with purpose. You don't relive the wound. You invite the healer into it. And suddenly, the dark doesn't feel so dark anymore. The silence doesn't feel so heavy. Because now, you're not alone in it. Now, there's light. You see, healing doesn't always come in forgetting. Sometimes it comes in remembering, but remembering with the right companion. Because God doesn't revisit your past to shame you. He revisits it to show you the places where He was already there, even when you didn't see Him. To show you how far you've come. To show you that even in the moments you were sure you'd lost everything, something eternal was still being written. So take a breath right now. Yes, right here. And allow yourself to stop running from what still hurts. Not to drown in it. Not to get lost in it. But to let Him hold it with you. You've been carrying these memories like they're secrets. Like they're liabilities. Like they're stains on the legacy God intended for you. But what if, just what if, they're altars instead? What if every moment you thought was wasted is now sacred because He's in it? He's not trying to force closure. He's offering comfort. And there's a difference. Closure says, let's get this over with. But comfort says, let's walk through this slowly together. Closure demands results, but comfort brings restoration. And restoration doesn't skip steps. It doesn't bypass your grief. It walks with it, tenderly, carefully, like a friend who's not in a hurry. Let each remembered ache, each mental snapshot of what once broke you, become a place He can enter. He won't turn away. He won't say it's too much. He won't sigh at your slowness or ask you to rush forward. Sometimes, the most powerful kind of healing is just being seen and known in the remembering. Not fixed, not corrected, just held. And God is a master at holding what others dropped, holding the weight others ignored, holding the pain others told you to get over. He doesn't want you to pretend anymore. He wants you to be present. Present with your own heart, present with Him. present enough to say, "This happened, and I survived, and now I want to heal." There are no shortcuts to that kind of healing. There's only presence, and God is fully present. In every flashback, in every quiet question, in every time you thought, "I should be over this by now." He's still there, not rushing you through, but gently walking you out. He's not here to push your memories into silence. He's here to give them context. And context changes everything. Because when you start to see your past through His mercy, through His protection, through His unwavering presence, it doesn't sting the same way. You start to realize that even in the heartbreak, He was preserving something. Even in the loss, He was planting something deeper. Even in the abandonment, He was anchoring you in Himself. And when you look through that lens, when you let the light in, even your most painful memory can become a monument to His grace. So no, the goal isn't to forget. The goal is to remember rightly. And when you remember rightly, the fear loses its grip. The shame loses its voice. And the wound that once defined you begins to heal. And beloved, that's what He's offering you now. A different kind of remembering. A holy kind. A slow, sacred walk through rooms you thought you had to keep locked forever. He's not barging in. He's knocking gently. And all He's asking is, will you let me in there too? Not to erase it, but to fill it with light. To show you that even in the place of your deepest hurt, love can still rise. Peace can still settle. Joy can still return. Let yourself pause in your remembering. Let it be more than just pain. Let it be a meeting place, a sacred moment where heaven brushes against your history and says, "I was there, and I still am." And now we come to a place many don't talk about. The private rooms, the hidden ones. The places in your soul where even you rarely go anymore. You know the ones I'm talking about. The rooms where you keep what you can't explain. The pain that didn't come with a reason. The bitterness that's not loud, but it's there. The confusion that's not chaos, but it's consistent. And all around those rooms, you've built walls, not because you don't believe in God, but because the last time you trusted, it cost you something you weren't ready to lose. And I want to tell you right now, God sees those walls. He sees every brick, every layer of defense. And He doesn't call it rebellion. He doesn't look at your caution and label it sin. He calls it what it is, survival. A defense that made sense in a world that didn't give you space to heal. And He doesn't despise you for that. No, my friend. He honors where you are. He walks into the hallway of your heart with gentleness, not force. With mercy, not demand. He doesn't rush your healing. He doesn't bark orders like the world does. He doesn't say, "Hurry up and get over it." No, He walks in slowly. He sits down in the hallway outside that locked room and waits. Waits for the day you're ready to unlock even just one corner. Because that's how God moves. Not as an intruder, not as a bulldozer, but as a friend. And I know it may not sound like much, but to some of us, that's everything. To be approached without pressure. To be invited without being exposed. To be seen and not judged. That's what God offers. Not a checklist, not a timeline, but companionship. He's not pacing outside your door impatiently, tapping His foot, waiting for you to be more spiritual. No, He's seated right there, patient, consistent, still loving you even when you can't open up. And that's the thing. We often think we have to tear the walls down before God can enter, but He's already inside. He doesn't need the walls to fall before He begins to heal. He just needs the permission to stand with you in the space you feel most guarded. And slowly, in your time, love will begin to do what pressure never could. Because real healing never comes from force. It comes from presence. The kind of presence that stays through every flinch, every pause, every setback. The kind of presence that doesn't leave when you get tired of trying. That's God. That's who He is. That's what He does. You may not be ready to swing the doors wide open, but maybe today, just today, you crack the door an inch. Maybe you let Him into the fear behind the wall. Maybe you let Him see the disappointment you've been disguising as strength. Maybe you say, God, I'm not ready to trust everybody, but maybe I can start trusting You. Right here, right now. Just a little. And He'll take that little and call it holy. He'll take your caution and call it courageous. Because what matters to Him is not the pace, it's the posture. Not how fast you move, but whether your heart is open to move at all. In Psalm 147:3, it says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Not, He demands the brokenhearted get it together. Not, He expects you to fix yourself. No, He heals, He binds, He tends. You see, you may have been taught that spiritual maturity means never hesitating, never hurting, never questioning. But real spiritual depth often looks like sitting with your pain long enough for God to sit down beside you. It looks like saying, I'm still angry, but I'm still here. It looks like showing up with the wound unwrapped, even if your voice trembles when you speak. And God? He doesn't mind the trembling. He honors the attempt. He blesses the small yes. He steps into your stillness and makes it sacred. Because in His eyes, you're not a fortress to be conquered. You're a soul to be loved back to life. So let's say it clearly. You don't have to feel guilty for being guarded. You don't have to apologize for the armor you built when you didn't know any other way to stay safe. God doesn't shame you for the walls. He simply wants to remind you that you don't need them with Him. You don't have to hide your heart in His presence. You don't have to pretend. You can bring Him your unfiltered truth, and He'll bring you His unchanging grace. Maybe those walls once served you. Maybe they even saved you. But now He's inviting you to live beyond them. Not all at once, not in a rush, but brick by brick, moment by moment, breath by breath. And He won't leave you in the process. He'll stay even when you hesitate. He'll stay even when you retreat. He'll stay even when you say, I can't do this today. And in time, not your neighbor's time, not a preacher's time, but your time, you'll start to feel the light breaking through. You'll start to sense that maybe, just maybe, you don't need every defense anymore. That maybe safety isn't in the hiding, it's in the healing. And healing isn't a performance, it's a relationship. With the one who knows every layer of you and still chooses to call you beloved. So if you're still behind a wall today, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, I just want you to know, God's not on the other side demanding you come out. He's on your side, already in the room, already loving you as you are. And He's not moving at the speed of guilt. He's moving at the pace of grace. So let it be slow. Let it be sacred. Let it be personal. Because this healing, it's not mass-produced. It's not one size fits all. It's custom designed for your soul, at your rhythm, in your story. And there is no shame in how long it takes. There's only beauty in who walks with you through it. Let him walk with you. Let him stay where others couldn't. Let him love you back to life. One wall, one wound, one whisper at a time. And now, beloved, I want you to rest in this sacred truth. The one who shaped light and shadow sees even the armor you've built to protect your heart. He sees every layer of defense you draped over your spirit, every strategy you crafted to stay safe. Yet he does not come to tear down those defenses with force. He doesn't arrive like a storm that shatters your walls. No, he comes like a whisper, gentle enough to soften what fear has hardened, persistent enough to melt what doubt has tempered. His presence is not conditional on your strength, and he does not demand peace before peace can live within you. You've erected these walls because the world wounded you, because your hope got bruised, because love once slipped through your hands like sand. You learned to brace, to position, to scan every move. You constructed self-preservation as theology. But God? He's not afraid of your fortress. He's already inside. He doesn't need to invade or legislate. He simply wants to stand with you in the hallway of your heart. He stands there and whispers, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Not through intimidation, but through immeasurable patience. Consider this. True faith doesn't require invincibility. True strength doesn't demand invulnerability. Real trust doesn't ask you to stop trembling. In fact, sometimes the strongest faith is the one that remains when fear is still in the room. He enters your guarded places not to shame your caution, but to honor your endurance. He doesn't say, "Drop the shield now." He says, "I'll be your shield. Lean into me." And in that, subtle, kind, unwavering, your loneliness begins to dissolve, your fear begins to soften, your doubt begins to dim against the light of his nearness. There may be nights when your spirit quakes at the echo of old hurts, mornings when silence seems safer than hope, and afternoons when your defenses feel too heavy to relax. And still, he remains. His whispers are not loud, but they are unmistakable. "I will not leave you. I will not turn away." It's the voice not of rushing, but of constancy. It's the sound not of condemnation, but of companionship. It's the melody of grace played softly in the place where your defenses once blared. You don't have to earn his presence. You don't need to perform courage or manufacture trust. You don't need a spotless past or unshakable faith. He doesn't require you to be beyond your fears. He simply walks with you through them. He speaks more kindly than you speak to yourself. He holds more securely than any barrier you built. He whispers more faithfully than your doubts scream. Maybe you've convinced yourself that vulnerability is weakness, that softness is danger, that letting someone in is betrayal. But this voice, his voice, says otherwise. It calls your hesitancy holy, your boundaries wise, but not impenetrable. Your longing for intimacy not a failure, but a sign of life. Where you once held your breath, waiting for rescue that never came, he now offers the breath you've been holding, the comfort you've been craving, the constancy you've been scanning for. He invites you not to armor up, but to breathe. Slowly, deeply, freely, in the safety of his nearness. It doesn't happen all at once. Change rarely does. It begins with a small courage, letting your heart consider that maybe, just maybe, you can trust him in the shadows. It starts when you whisper, "Lord, I'm afraid, but I'm still here. And he answers with kindness. He brings light not by blasting into your dark, but by leaning in until the darkness dissolves under his steady glow. When your mind floods with "what if it happens again?" he whispers, "I'm not going anywhere." When suspicion whispers, "You'll be left behind," he whispers, "You are anchored in my presence." When fear tells you that trust is reckless, he whispers, "My love is never reckless. It's intentional. It's faithful. It never breaks." Even when you feel too guarded, too jaded, too slow to respond, he waits. He doesn't sigh in impatience. He doesn't resent your hesitance. He collects every fragment of your quiet trust, the reluctance, the trembling pause, the single step toward opening the door. He considers that step brave. He honors that moment as sacred. Because to him, it's not about how loud your faith sounds. It's about whether you're willing to let him in, even just a little. Beloved, defenses were never meant to be walls that keep his light out. They were meant to be gates. He can open with gentleness. And even if they feel immovable, he knows how to move them. Not by pressure, but by presence. Not by panic, but by patience. Not by loud promises, but by whispered assurances. And this is the difference. God never leaves you outside. He doesn't stand beyond your walls waiting for you to collapse them. He stands inside them with you, breathing calm through your fear, slow building trust with every whisper of love. There are moments when your doubt feels like an echo chamber, your skepticism louder than your hope, your shields tighter than your softness. But here's truth. Divinity isn't intimidated by your walls. Love wasn't undone when you stopped speaking. Grace didn't vanish when you hesitated. His whisper remains. And that whisper is what rewrites the narrative. In those dark hours when the enemy thought you were final, beyond repair, beyond reach, God was writing a different word. He was drafting a salvation you couldn't see yet. He was planting a resurrection in places you thought were already dead. And that whisper that reignites your story isn't distant. It's present. It's personal. It's patient. It's yours, so let it in. Not because you're perfect or faith-filled or unafraid, but because you're human. Because God didn't give up on us when we got scared. Because grace doesn't require bravery. It births it. Bring your skepticism, your grief, your "I don't know how to trust" again, and let him speak. Let his whisper begin to outlast your doubt. And bit by bit, breathe again. His whisper is enough. His pace is enough. His presence is enough. You are not too broken, too slow, too guarded for this. In fact, because of those things, you're exactly who he's here for. His whisper is not an echo. It's the sound of redemption. Not a fallback plan. It's the proof that your final word is not yours to write. He's writing it. In compassionate code, I'm with you. I see every armor you've worn. I honor your fear, and I'm here. Still whispering, still waiting, still rewriting what the enemy called final. When you've spent years gathering evidence against hope, cataloging every disappointment, rehearsing every "I told you so" before it even arrives, it becomes easy to believe that acceptance is conditional, reserved for the perfect, the worthy, the unbroken. But beloved, God is breaking that lie right now. He's not correcting it from a distance. He's entering the place where you believed you were disqualified, to rewrite the narrative from within. In the chapters you locked away, the aftermath of rejection, the ache of misunderstood motives, the loss that made you smaller, he was still present. Not as a distant savior keeping score, but as a faithful companion staying beside you in your most silent hours. When people misunderstood your intent and called your motives wrong, he understood your heart. When you felt overlooked, forgotten, even invisible, he didn't drift away. He leaned closer. He saw what others missed. There were promises whispered and then broken. There were doors that closed and never reopened. There were moments your spirit broke and you didn't have the words to even pray. And yet, even through every step you took toward resignation, he discovered something holy in your perseverance. He noticed the depth of your longing, the fidelity beneath your facade. You may not have felt worthy. You may have dressed your heart in cautious armor. But he was meticulously, tenderly unraveling every stitch, saying, "This is not beyond redemption. This is not beyond restoration." And listen to this. His acceptance is not dependent on your faithfulness, your confidence, your leaps of trust. It's not transactional. It's deeply relational. Rooted in who he is, not who you are in any given moment. Even when doubt whispered that you were falling short, he whispered back, "I do not love you because you've earned it. I love you because I made you." Remember the nights the world treated your silence as indifference. Remember the days when no one noticed your small, brave decisions just to keep going. In those unremarked moments, God was writing a testament to your perseverance. Every tear, every tremor, every small sigh you swallowed so you wouldn't break down in front of others, he counted them all. He did not allow one of them to go unseen or wasted. So now, he's revealing to you what the enemy thought was finished. He's showing you that disappointment didn't disqualify you, that misunderstanding didn't disown you, that every time the world whispered, "Not enough," he whispered back, "Enough for me." In the hidden corners of your soul, perhaps you still carry a fragment of hope. Maybe it pulses quietly, guarded, yet genuine. And that flicker, however fragile, has not escaped his sight. He treasures it. He cultivates it. And it's taking root in a place you believed was barren. Maybe you've believed that people only stay if you prove yourself. But he stays if only a fragment of trust exists. Does that surprise you? It doesn't surprise him. He says, "I remain immersed and invested in every moment, especially those drenched in pain." Your fear of being too much, your dread of revealing too much longing, he meets it not with frustration, but with steadfast kindness. When the world commands you to file everything away, to present only the polished parts of your story, he invites you into honesty, not so he can fix you on the other side, but so he can walk with you through the struggle. He is not intimidated by your complexity. He is not pleased by your recovery. Rather, he is moved by your transparency. So today, I want to ask, not demand, you to consider something sacred. Your longing for belonging is not irrational. Your desire to be known and accepted for who you are, not only for what you appear to fix, is holy. That longing is your soul's truth. It's not shameful, not unwarranted, not out of reach. It's exactly where he wants to meet you. And if you're doubting that claim, if you're thinking, "If I'm that precious, why didn't anyone stay?" Hear this. He stayed. Even when you chose to walk alone, even when the world proved unfaithful, even when your belief wavered, he did not abandon you in the waiting room of unfulfilled love. He pulled up a seat and refused to leave. When impatience rose in others, he didn't scold you for being slow. When disappointment grew loud, he didn't label you ungrateful. When your hope seemed naive, he didn't mock it. Instead, he named it holy stubbornness, the kind of faith that whispers, there must be more than disappointment. Even when it trembles, it resists the lie that you are done, that you are broken beyond repair. Do you see? Your doubt, your hurt, your hesitations. They don't disqualify you. They deepen you. They give. He invites himself into reverence. Because he does not need proof you'll stay worthy. He need only the smallest invitation. An inch-wide gate cracked open in words like, "Help me believe again." That is enough. Now the world may still fail you. People may still misunderstand. Rejection may still sting. But you've got a God who's staying. Not because you promised you'd never stumble, but because he promised to never leave you. So let your soul say yes to that, even if you don't feel capable of belonging unconditionally just yet. Let God's belonging settle in the emptiest chambers first. Let his acceptance fill the spaces where fear used to dwell. Let his constancy be the foundation when your trust feels shaky. Because acceptance isn't a reward for performance. It's a gift. Not because you're flawless, but because he is faithful. And that gift? It's waiting for you right now. No prerequisites, no checklist, just him. Just presence, just acceptance. Let this truth rest in you. You are not behind anyone's timeline. You are not defined by the speed with which you open back up. You are not bound by the stories that told you you're beyond repair. You are seen. You are held. You are accepted. Not because of what you've done, but because of who he is. And that acceptance, once it settles on your bones, is the kind of belonging no disappointment can undo. You've lived under a subtle pressure that your worth depends on your performance, your faithfulness, your ability to appear strong. But God's invitation to you today is completely different. He doesn't require perfection, nor does he wait for you to carry no pain. He meets you in your brokenness, welcomes you in your weariness, and says, in essence, I was never looking for your flawless spirituality. I only longed for your honest heart. This is the kind of belonging he brings. A belonging untouched by failure, unmoved by shame, uncanceled by disappointment. It's a sacred paradox. Your longing, your hesitancy, your guarded hope, they are not disqualifiers, but doorways. Each time you whispered, I'll never belong, he whispered back, but you belong to me. You may have feared your need was too heavy, your grief too deep, your questions too many, yet he's demonstrated daily that your complexity doesn't disqualify you. It consecrates you in his eyes. When you felt unheard, unseen, when your prayers seemed to echo off walls, he was hearing far more. He counted every ache, every tear, every time you summoned courage just to live another day. He stood in the rooms where no one came, where no one stayed, and he witnessed your faithful devotion even in failure. That's grace in action, not afraid of shadow, but illuminating it with tenderness. He doesn't attach his presence to your belief level or your performance standard. He's not in constant calculation of your spiritual maturity. He is simply faithful to who he is. As long as you're willing to meet him, even in fragments, he will come. And that, beloved, changes everything. Because that means your worth isn't measured by your history, your speed, or your self-sufficiency. Your worth is measured by the one who named you. Yes, you've been disappointed. You've tasted betrayal. You've been let go or shut out more than once. But in the quiet scriptures of your heart, there's a declaration echoing. You remain, you love, you honor every cry. He continues to sit with you in the wreckage, not to fix it swiftly, but to show up persistently. Your crisis didn't scare him. Your boundaries don't intimidate him. What he sees beneath it all is someone sacred, someone he delights in, even when you struggle. You may wonder, if I'm accepted, why is healing still hard? Because acceptance doesn't replace work, it enables it. Acceptance gives you the room to unlearn fear, to face old wounds, to rediscover softness without density. It frees you to trust that your healing pace matters more to him than perfection. And that's what real love does. It carries you through the process without condemnation. He's not demanding a leap from you today. He's inviting a step. He's not demanding you conquer every fear. He's asking you to say, I'm open to you. That small surrender, that quiet willingness, is not weakness. It's sacred bravery. And it's where belonging begins to breathe again. When you remember the times you convinced yourself, I must be too broken for this, consider that he's been whispering all along. You belong, even in the broken. Not in spite of your mess, but because of it. Because in it, he's unveiling a narrative of grace. That narrative runs deeper than disappointment, wider than failure, and unshakably anchored in love. This invitation is not just about hope. It's about acceptance. It's about resting in the truth that you don't have to carry your pain alone. Even when trust is slow to return, when vulnerability still scares you, let him be the one you lean on. There's no shame in being careful. There's courage in that care, and God honors that too. You've been taught that to belong is to be indistinguishable from others, to fit in, to be seamless. But divine belonging is opposite. It invites renown for your real story. It calls your scars sacred. It doesn't ignore your hesitancy. It sanctifies it. Your belonging is not tied to assimilation. It's rooted in recognition of your soul's endurance. So breathe deeply now and let this settle. You don't have to perform belonging to earn it. You don't have to hide your aches to deserve love. You don't need to prove yourself safe enough to be invited. You're already invited. You're already welcomed. The question now is, will you lean into that belonging? Will you let it wrap around your softest truths? I know today might still feel heavy. Doubt may still whisper that you're somewhere between too afraid and too damaged. But in those in-betweens lives, a seed God planted. A seed of belonging not earned, but bestowed. A seed that whispers, I am for you. He's watering it still. He's waiting for you to see it bud. Maybe no one else rooted hope in you again. Maybe no one else created space for your complicated story. But now there is one who will, not because you dazzled him, but because he delights in what he made. Even when your pace is slow, your hope is faint. Your faith is fragile. He stands there, unwavering. And when belonging comes in whispers, not fanfare, when it's the gentle confirmation that someone stays even when the world doesn't, that is the kind of belonging worth keeping. That is the belonging that endures. That is the belonging that reshapes your identity. It doesn't ask you to prove anything. It just embraces you. Completely, unconditionally. So let yourself rest in that truth a little longer. Let it soak into your bones where doubt feels rooted. Let His presence remind you that you matter, not because you overcame, but because you are beloved. Not because you held it together, but because someone held you even when you couldn't. Because belonging like this doesn't depend on what you carry. It depends on who carries with you. And God is still carrying you, even in the places you think you're least capable of being loved. You've spent years trying to adjust yourself just to be accepted, wearing masks, changing your tone, editing your truth. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But either way, it left you tired, and God knows that kind of exhaustion. He sees what it costs to keep bending who you are so others don't break your heart again. He sees how many times you said, "I'm okay," when you were unraveling inside. He sees how many circles you walked into, only to feel like a stranger in the middle of the crowd. And He wants you to know, He never asked you to shrink to fit. So let's sit here together for a moment, right where you are. No pressure to perform, no need to fake that you're fine. Just breathe. I want you to know this. Those parts of you that you've tried to hide, those memories that brought too much pain to revisit, those voices that told you you were too much or not enough, they're not hidden from God. And here's the beautiful part. He hasn't turned away, not once. Even when you felt unworthy, even when you questioned your value, He stayed. That's what real belonging looks like. God saw when you were misunderstood, not just by strangers, but by the people who were supposed to love you best. He saw when you were passed over, when you gave your heart and it wasn't held with care. He saw when you kept showing up, at work, at home, in conversations, even though something inside you was breaking. You've been faithful, even in exhaustion, and that hasn't gone unnoticed. Let me share a story with you, if I may. Maybe you've heard of J.K. Rowling, the woman who gave the world Harry Potter. What many people don't talk about enough is what came before her success. She was a single mother, living on welfare, struggling with depression. And she'd written a manuscript, something she'd poured her heart into. Do you know how many times it was rejected? 12. 12 publishers turned her down before one finally said yes. Can you imagine what it felt like? Each no confirming her quietest fear. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't belong. But she kept going. And that one yes changed everything. Not because she suddenly became someone different, but because someone finally saw the value that had always been there. Now, I don't tell you that story to idolize fame or success. I tell it because maybe you've been there too, offering your heart, your effort, your truth, and watching it be dismissed. Maybe you've been the one handing over your story only to have it returned unread. But beloved, that rejection wasn't the final word. It never was. Because the one who truly sees you never turned you away. He was there for every no, whispering, "You're still mine." God's love doesn't expire when others stop seeing your worth. His presence doesn't vanish when people walk out. In fact, it's often in the loneliness, in the silence, that He becomes the loudest. Because His acceptance is not fragile. It's not based on your success, your performance, or how many people cheer for you. His love is rooted in your existence, in the very breath He gave you. That's what makes it unshakable. And if you've ever thought, why would God want someone like me? Know this: He already has you. He wanted you before the world ever tried to define your worth. He loved you when you had nothing to offer but your tears. He welcomed you when you barely had the strength to whisper a prayer. His arms were open long before you ever reached for him. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to earn love, to be enough, to do enough, to hide the parts that felt unlovable. But grace doesn't work like that. Grace comes in like a gentle river, slowly washing over the hardened places. It doesn't demand you change overnight. It doesn't ask you to pretend. It just comes. And when you let it, it seeps into the deepest cracks, reminding you, you are still worthy, you are still chosen, you still belong. Even now, you may feel the tug of unworthiness. You may still have doubts wrapped around your spirit like a second skin. That's okay. God is not waiting for you to shed all those layers at once. He's patient. And while the world may grow tired of waiting for you to get better, He stays for the long haul. That's the difference between conditional love and covenant love. So let yourself soften. Let your shoulders drop. You don't have to hold it all together. You're not going to lose him because you're tired. You're not going to scare him off because you still have questions. Your confusion isn't a deal breaker. Your wounds don't make you too difficult. In fact, they make you all the more human. And he delights in your humanity. He didn't knit you together only to abandon you at the first sign of imperfection. He formed you with intention, knowing there would be days of uncertainty. And on those days, his love becomes even more tender, not less. When others grow weary of your healing journey, he keeps showing up, reminding you, I'm still here. I've never left. I know some people told you that you had to be fearless to be faithful, but that's not the truth. Real faith looks like showing up even when you're scared. It looks like holding out hope when your hands are trembling. It looks like trusting a little more today than you did yesterday. That's what courage is. That's what God sees. Not the absence of fear, but your persistence through it. And here's something else I want you to hold close. You don't have to earn your seat at the table. You already have one. Your name is already engraved. There's a place for you in his presence, and no one can take it away. Not your past, not your pain, not your mistakes. Nothing can separate you from the love of God, not even you. So maybe today is the day you stop disqualifying yourself. Maybe it's the day you stop waiting to be more before you step into the love that's already been offered. Maybe it's time to believe what he's been saying all along. I choose you. I've always chosen you. Let these words echo in your heart like a soft song at night. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are not too complicated. You are not too late. You are loved just as you are. And there is nothing you could do that would make God stop wanting you. He is rewriting what the world called final. He is restoring what others abandoned. And he is reminding you now, you were never alone in the waiting. And my dear friend, I know you are not always walking on the path called waiting. There was a time your heart was open, wide like the sky before the rain. You believed easily. You gave freely. You walked into rooms with your whole soul showing, not yet familiar with the cost of vulnerability. But somewhere along the line, life started to teach you otherwise. Not with words, but with moments. Moments that folded like broken promises, that closed doors you thought would stay open, that dimmed the light in places you once felt safe. You've been disappointed before, haven't you? Not just once or twice. Disappointment etched itself into the very rhythm of your life. You've made cautious agreements with hope, saying, "I'll believe, but only halfway." You learned how to give just enough to feel connected, but not so much that you couldn't pull back when the wind shifted. That kind of living, it wears on a person. It wraps your soul in armor. And maybe on the outside, people see strength. But I see the truth. I see that strength was built from necessity, not peace. You learned how to rehearse your exits before you ever fully entered the room. You started scanning situations for their escape routes, not because you didn't want to belong, but because you'd been in places where staying cost you more than leaving. You knew what it felt like to be forgotten while still present, to be misunderstood in your silence, to be measured not by your heart, but by what others thought you could offer or endure. And so you began to protect what remained. And I want you to hear this. That protection, it wasn't weakness, it wasn't failure. It was wisdom born from wounds. But even wisdom, if never revisited, can become a prison. The world told you, showed you, that every gift came with strings, that comfort always had a cost, that safety was just a softer word for something temporary. You started believing that the moment you fully unfolded yourself, the silence would betray you. That if you dared to be vulnerable again, you'd be met not with tenderness, but with absence. I know this part of you, beloved. Not because I've watched from a distance, but because I've walked beside you in every moment you tried to pretend you were fine when you weren't. I was there when you smiled through disappointment, when you nodded politely in rooms where your soul was screaming to be seen, when you tried to convince yourself that what you received was enough, even as your spirit cried out for something real, something lasting. You've lived like this for so long that even goodness feels foreign. Even peace makes you anxious, like it's a trick of the light that will vanish if you reach for it. You've become a strategist of your own survival, a silent negotiator making trades with your own heart. Don't hope too hard. Don't feel too deep. Don't stay too long. And it's not because you lack the desire to love or be loved. It's because you've been trained by life to expect the drop, the turn, the end. Let me say this clearly. That is not a flaw in you. That is the echo of a world that did not know how to hold your tenderness. You are not broken because you learned to be cautious. You are not difficult because you hesitate. You are not bitter because your trust doesn't come quickly. You are human. And every pause in your spirit is not a denial of love, but a longing to believe it's real. That longing, that's still alive. I see it. I feel it pulsing beneath every defense you've constructed. You don't want to be guarded. You want to be safe. There's a difference. You don't want to test every promise. You want one that doesn't need to be proven. You want to rest. You want to exhale. You want to believe that there is a place, a person, a presence that won't recoil when you need more than you can offer. And I want to tell you something that the world forgot to say. You're allowed to want that. You don't have to feel guilty for desiring steady love. You don't have to apologize for the ache that says, I need someone who stays. Your craving for connection is not weakness. It is the strongest part of you because it has survived every betrayal and still dares to speak. But I know, every time you get close to that kind of love, a part of you whispers, be careful. You start searching for the loophole, for the catch, for the fine print. Because experience has conditioned you to believe that everything good has a shadow. You brace yourself, not because you want to leave, but because you're terrified to fall into something that might let you go. And this is where we meet, right here in this trembling middle ground between hunger and hesitation, between what you long for and what you fear. This is sacred space, not the place of arrival, but the place of becoming, the place where healing whispers through the cracks of old walls, the place where I do my most faithful work. I don't need you to dismantle all your defenses at once. I don't need you to pretend you're fearless. All I ask is this: bring your weariness, bring your suspicion, bring your battle-worn heart that's still beating, still believing there must be more than this. Because here's the truth, the kind that doesn't change with mood or moment. You were not meant to live in emotional exile. You were not designed to survive on breadcrumbs of connection. You were made for belonging, deep, sustaining, unconditional belonging. And the fact that you still long for it, even after everything, is proof that it still exists. So come with your armor. Come with your questions. Come with your careful hope. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to show up. And I promise, I will meet you there. You've spent a lifetime learning to guard what's tender in you. And you've worn that armor so long, it feels like skin. It kept you standing when everything around you fell. It shielded you from the echoes of rejection, from the chill of abandonment, from the sting of being unseen. And for a while, that armor made sense. It gave you space to breathe in a world that asked too much and gave too little. But now you're tired. Tired of carrying the weight of self-preservation. Tired of second-guessing every good thing. Tired of wondering if love will stay. And here, in this sacred pause between what hurt you and what heals you, God speaks, not loudly, not forcefully, but with the quiet power of someone who's not in a hurry to fix you, because he never saw you as broken. He doesn't show up with demands or ultimatums. He doesn't rip down the walls or strip away your shields. He simply steps in, close, so close you can feel his presence even before you recognize his words. And he says something your soul's been longing to hear. I remain. Just that. 3 words, gentle, unmoving, eternal. Not I might, not I'll see how you behave, not if you believe enough, pray enough, heal fast enough. No, just I remain. Right here in the middle of your guarded heart. Right here behind the walls you thought kept even God out. He doesn't ask for proof of your trust. He doesn't need the door wide open to enter. He just comes close and stays. You've been taught that love leaves. That when you show too much, ask too much, feel too much, that's when people pull away. So you braced yourself for the same pattern with God. You waited for him to lose interest, to walk away like others did. But he didn't. Because real love, the kind that built you, the kind that holds galaxies in place, doesn't flinch at your doubt. It doesn't retreat from your questions, and it sure doesn't run from your silence. That love remains. You see, God doesn't wait for your faith to be full before he shows up. He shows up while you're still unsure, while you're still whispering maybe under your breath, while you're still carrying memories that make it hard to hope again. That's where he plants his feet. That's where he leans in. Your hesitations? They don't offend him. Your fears? They don't disqualify you. In fact, those tender places are where He's closest, because He knows. He knows what it took for you to even consider showing up today. He knows the layers you had to peel back just to whisper, "God, are you still there?" And His answer, without drama or spectacle, is always the same. I remain. No pressure, no shame, no spiritual checklist, just presence. You don't have to be ready for Him to be present. He isn't asking you to rush the process or pretend you're whole. He knows that trust is something that grows in the soil of consistency. And so, that's what it costs, that's what He gives you. Not fireworks, not fanfare, but daily, steady, unwavering presence. You are already in the place of welcome. Not because you earned it, not because you said the right words, but because He decided long ago, before the walls, before the scars, before the doubt, that you were worth staying for, even while you're still deciding, even while you're still uncertain if He's real, or good, or close. He remains. You may have walked through seasons where it felt like no one stayed, where everyone had a timeline for your healing, a limit to their understanding. You may have been surrounded by people who meant well, but couldn't handle the depth of your grief, the weight of your questions, the texture of your wounds. And maybe after a while you stopped trying to be understood. But let me speak this truth into that sacred silence. God is not intimidated by the parts of you you've learned to hide. He's not frightened by your grief or frustrated by your slowness to trust. He isn't in a hurry to change you, because He's far more interested in being with you. The world runs. The world demands performance. The world says, "Get it together, or you'll be left behind." But God, He waits. He sits beside you in the fog. He holds space for your pacing. And even when you turn your back, He never stops watching the door. That's who He is. That's what love looks like. Not a checklist, not a condition, but a presence that refuses to leave. You're not late to His love. You're not too damaged for His embrace. You're not too slow to receive His care. He sees how long it's taken you to open your heart, even a crack, and He honors it. He meets you there, not to demand more, but to say, "Even here, I remain." Maybe that's the message you didn't know your heart needed today. Maybe what you've been aching for wasn't a resolution, but reassurance. Not a sign, but a staying. And here it is. Simple, still, sure. I remain. Let that settle deep in your spirit. Let it undo every whisper that said love had a limit. Let it soften the part of you that's still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Let it remind you, God is not another human heart waiting to be disappointed. He is the eternal one, the steady one, the kind of love that shows up in the waiting and stays until you're ready to rise. You are safe here. You are not too complicated. You are not too much. You are already held by a love that doesn't require perfection, only permission to stay. So take a breath. Just one. You don't have to make a decision today. You don't have to jump. Just breathe. Just rest in the truth that He's not going anywhere. And when you're ready, when your soul whispers, even faintly, maybe, He will still be right there, waiting, because He never left. He never will. And so here you are, still breathing, still carrying both doubt and desire in your chest, like two hands holding opposite truths. You want to believe, but you're afraid. You want to come closer, but something in you pulls back. You're hoping, but the ache of past disappointments whispers, "Don't get too close. Don't want too much. Don't let your guard down." But listen closely. God isn't waiting for your fear to vanish before He draws near. He's not holding back His arms until your confidence shows up. He is already holding space for you, just as you are. Not the polished version, not the brave face you wear in front of others. The real you, the one that hesitates, that second guesses, that flinches when love comes too close. You don't have to be perfect to be embraced. You don't have to prove that you've conquered your fears before you can be welcomed. God does not require your strength to offer His presence. He is not impressed by performance, and He is not persuaded by perfection. He is moved by your honesty, by your trembling, by the small, quiet yes you whisper through tears. Those half-built walls you've been living behind? The ones you didn't finish tearing down because you weren't sure if it was safe? He's not standing on the other side shouting, "Tear them down faster." No. He's already on your side of the wall, sitting with you, not pushing, not rushing, just being, just staying. You've been told to clean up, to smile through it, to push past your pain like it's something to be ashamed of. But God never asked you to pretend. He never demanded your denial. He never once said, "Show me strength first." In fact, He said in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That weakness you thought disqualified you? It's actually where His power moves best. You've mistaken your hesitation as a hindrance, but it's actually a doorway. You've seen your longing as a liability, but heaven sees it as a signal. Your longing is not a failing. It is a sign of life. That ache in your chest, the one that rises when you think of belonging, of being seen, of finally resting in love, that ache is not a flaw. It is the echo of eternity calling you back home. It is the part of your soul that still remembers what it's like to be fully known and fully loved. God isn't disappointed by your hunger. He's drawn to it. Because hunger means you're still alive. Hunger means you haven't given up. Hunger means your heart hasn't been fully hardened by the world, no matter how many times it's been cracked. You think you have to be fearless to be accepted. But God welcomes you trembling. You think you have to be certain to be chosen. But He calls you even while you're unsure. You think you have to come with answers, but He just asks for your honesty. You've believed the lie that the kingdom is for the flawless. But the kingdom, the real kingdom, is made up of the bruised, the weary, the broken-hearted, the still healing, the just holding on. It's made up of people like you and me. People who show up with limps and bandages, who whisper prayers from behind closed doors. And it's in those moments, when you don't have it all together, when your belief is mixed with doubt, when your courage is wrapped in fear, that God leans in and says, "Right here, this is enough. You've got nothing to prove, no spiritual resume to present, no emotional checklist to pass. Just bring your heart, even if it's uncertain, even if it's cautious, even if it's half open and still aching. Because in God's kingdom, half open still counts as open. A whisper still counts as a prayer. A tear still counts as a surrender. He's not measuring the size of your faith. He's looking at the sincerity of your reach. You see, the meeting point between you and God isn't on the mountaintop of certainty. It's in the valley of vulnerability. It's where you dare to hope again, even while you're scared. It's where you say, I'm not sure, but I want to be near you. And God meets you right there, not with condemnation, but with compassion. He doesn't rush your process. He respects your timing. And more than that, He honors your honesty. Because the God who sees in secret knows when you're stretching just to stay soft. He knows what it costs you to trust again, and He counts it as worship. That's how kind He is. That's how patient. That's how close. And when you finally stop trying to hold it all together, when you let your hands fall open in surrender, even for a moment, He's right there to catch the weight. He's not afraid of the mess. He doesn't pull back from the struggle. He steps into it, steady and sure, and whispers the words your soul's been craving. I've got you. I always have. So you don't need to fix yourself first. You don't need to understand it all first. You don't need to climb out of your uncertainty just to be embraced. You're already embraced. Right now, in this very moment, with your questions, with your past, with your defenses, with your weary hope. God isn't waiting on the other side of your breakthrough. He's sitting with you in the becoming. So rest here, even if it's just for a minute. Let down the weight. Let go of the pressure. You are enough for love to stay, and He is not leaving. Not now, not ever. So now, let's settle something your heart has wrestled with for years. This love we speak of, this divine nearness, it is not contingent. It is not earned by your flawless faith. And it is not lost through your moments of fear. It does not arrive with your confidence, and it does not vanish in your questioning. This love, God's love, is not alone with terms and conditions. It is not measured in certainty. It is not offered on trial. God says, I do not require you to be certain to be received. And when He says it, He means it. Because love like this, the real kind, the healing kind, the God kind, doesn't pack its bags when you grow quiet. It doesn't walk away when your trust stutters or your hope flickers. Love like this doesn't need you to have all the answers. It just needs you to stay open, even just a crack. Because God doesn't demand a wide open door. He steps through the crack in your armor and says, even here, even now, I remain. Maybe you've spent your life fearing the exit. The moment people leave, the moment connection fades. Maybe you've learned to brace for disappointment, to assume that nothing lasts, that everyone eventually gets tired of waiting for you to heal, tired of understanding your journey, tired of your not quite there yet faith. But God is not everyone. God does not grow weary in His love for you. He is not a passerby. He is not a visitor. He is the one who stays. You've believed the lie that love must be kept by performance, that affection is earned by good behavior, that presence is maintained by never needing too much. And now your spirit flinches when you reach for closeness. You hesitate to need anyone because you were taught that need makes you weak. But friend, hear this in the deepest part of your soul. Your need doesn't push Him away, it pulls Him closer. Wherever your fear says, surely He won't stay for this, His whisper answers, I'm already here. And He's not pacing at the edges of your struggle, waiting for you to get it together. He's in the thick of it, unbothered by the dust, unfazed by the delay. You think your doubt makes Him distant, but it's your doubt that reveals just how near He's come. Because God shows up where you hurt the most. He steps into the place you thought He'd avoid, the place of your trembling, the moment of your lowest voice, and He speaks love right into it. Not loud, not forceful, but steady, patient, present. The kind of love that doesn't walk away just because you're not sure how to receive it. You've asked, why would he stay if I don't believe enough? And here's the answer that shifts everything. Because your belonging is not a scarce reward. It's your divine inheritance. It's not something you win with the right combination of belief and behavior. It's not a prize dangled above your head, out of reach. It's your birthright. It's the truth that was written into your soul before the pain, before the rejection, before you built the walls and lost your trust. You belong not because of what you do, but because of who He is. God is love. Not sometimes. Not when it's easy. Not when you're at your best. God is love, unchanging, unshaken, unwavering. And His love is not a retreating tide. It is a river that runs toward you, even when you're drifting. There's a moment that I often think about. A quiet, tender moment that mirrors the way God loves. I remember a man, a father, standing outside his daughter's room. She hadn't spoken to him in days, angry, hurt, confused. She closed herself off, thinking she needed time to heal alone. But every night, he stood outside that door. He didn't force his way in. He didn't demand an explanation. He just stayed close. He let her know, without words, that his love hadn't changed, that his presence wasn't leaving. And eventually, when the silence broke, she opened the door and found him still there. That's how God waits. Not impatient, not indifferent, but consistent, faithful, still present. And that presence, it speaks louder than any sermon. That constancy, that refusal to leave, it becomes the anchor when you've lost your grip on truth. It becomes the hand you feel even when your eyes are closed. He says, I am here. Not because you've been good, not because you've been bold, but because He chose you before you even knew how to choose Him back. And this love, this unwavering, non-transactional, never retreating love, it's not an idea. It's a presence, a living presence that leans in when the world leans out. That steps closer when fear says, you should back away. That stays when shame says, you're no longer worthy. You can stop auditioning for what you already have. You can stop trying to impress a God who is already in love with the real, unfiltered version of you. This is not love that leaves when the lights go out. This is not love that fades when the feelings change. This is not love that needs your certainty to stay. This is love that has already made its home in your doubt. This is love that sets a table in your fear and says, I'm not going anywhere. So you can be honest here. You can be tired here. You can be unsure here, and still be wholly, fully, deeply loved. Let that sink in. You don't have to fix your faith to belong. You don't have to have it all figured out to be worthy of His presence. God's love isn't looking for perfection. It's looking for permission. Permission to come closer. Permission to speak gently. Permission to stay, even when you don't know what to say back. And He will stay, because real love doesn't walk away when the room gets quiet. It leans in, it whispers, it waits. And tonight, if all you can offer is a sigh, a breath, a glance upward, He counts that as enough. Because His love was never waiting on your strength. It was always ready to carry you through your weakness. So let your guard fall, even if only a little. Let the truth in, even if it scares you. You are not here by accident. And this love, it's not going anywhere. My dear friend, there's no pressure in this moment. No demand. No spiritual deadline hovering over your head. There's just an invitation, a whisper, not a shout. A soft nudge, not a shove. A holy space being held open. Not for the person you think you should be, but for the soul you already are. God is not looking at your hesitation and turning away. He sees the hands that grip the past tight, the ones that have learned how to hold pain like armor. He knows you've grown used to the echo of silence after prayers unanswered. He knows how often you've stared at the ceiling asking, "Is this love even real?" And the truth is, your question does not offend him, because his love isn't so fragile that it needs your certainty to survive. His presence doesn't flinch when you glance away. He doesn't call you to draw near so he can measure your sincerity. No, he draws near first. He comes closer first. He waits, without judgment, for your heart to stop trembling. And when it does, when even for a second you lower the weight of trying to be enough, he speaks. Let yourself be held. Not fixed, not explained, not figured out. Held. What if this whole time you've been trying to earn what God already wants to give? What if the arms you thought would fold in disappointment are actually the arms that never folded at all? You've learned to brace yourself for the letdown. You've been trained by the world to watch for the withdrawal, to expect that once someone sees all of you, they'll leave. But God is not the world. He doesn't enter to evaluate. He enters to embrace. And there's a difference. There's a quiet place being prepared for you right now. A sanctuary not built by hands, but held by love. A place where your grief doesn't disqualify you, where your anger doesn't exile you, where your guarded heart isn't an obstacle, but a place God approaches with care. He's not rushing your healing. He's not measuring your worth by how quickly you recover. He just wants you to breathe again. He wants you to believe again, not with pressure, but with presence. So let this be your moment of release. You don't have to prove anything here. You don't have to say all the right words or know how to begin. You don't need to tidy up your emotions before you sit in his presence. You just need to let yourself be held. Maybe you've never had that space before. Maybe no one ever told you that you didn't have to be strong every moment. Maybe they made you feel like peace was something reserved for the perfect. But God has been trying to show you something different. Not through lightning, not through earthquakes, but through whispers, through stillness, through staying. And maybe today, the stillness is starting to feel less like emptiness and more like invitation. Maybe what used to sound like silence now feels like room, like space to breathe, like the beginning of something sacred. Let this new possibility echo quietly inside you. You don't have to declare it out loud yet. You don't have to understand all of it. But if something in you feels the flicker of maybe God is really that patient. Maybe his love is really that unconditional. Then that's enough. Let it echo. Let it live. Let it stretch out in the corners of your heart you thought were closed forever. You are not beyond the reach of restoration. You are not too old to begin again. You are not too hardened to be softened. And your story is not too complicated for healing. This is not a religion trying to get you to sign a contract. This is not a sermon trying to get you to perform. This is not a demand dressed as faith. This is an invitation, a hand extended, a love that waits at the door but never walks away from it. Because the same God who called Lazarus from the tomb with nothing more than his voice is speaking now to the places in you that have been buried by pain. He's saying, "Come forth, He's not afraid of what's been wrapped in grief. He's not disgusted by what's grown quiet or cold. He just wants to bring it back into the light, back into the warmth, back into the truth that you are still held. So here's the question I ask you, not as a preacher, not as a performer, but as a brother. What if you let yourself be loved like that? What if, just for today, you stopped holding your breath and let the love of God be as real to you as your past pain has been? What if that whisper, "Let yourself be held," isn't just a sentence? What if it's a doorway, a threshold, a return? You see, this isn't about you doing more. This is about surrendering to what's already reaching for you. And that takes trust, I know. Especially if you've been let down. Especially if the word love still carries a sting. But hear me, friend. You didn't stumble here by chance. This isn't just another message scrolling past your screen. These words, they're not random. They're divine fingerprints. A whisper placed in your path at just the right moment. A key fit perfectly for a lock you forgot even existed. And now that lock is starting to rattle. Because deep inside you, something's moving. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's real. A quiet stirring like the first wind before the storm of change. A voice in your spirit saying, maybe this time, it won't end like before. Maybe this time, you don't have to keep running. Maybe you won't have to hide your heart. Maybe you don't need to protect yourself from the very thing your soul is starving for. And here we are, not someday, not after you get your life together, not once you feel more worthy. No. Right here, right now. If you've never received Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, this is it. Your moment. If you've drifted, if you've walked away, if you've felt far, this is your return. This is the Father's arms stretched wide. And the Holy Spirit, He's not just tapping gently, He's calling your name, pulling on the deepest part of you. Don't brush that feeling off. Don't silence it. Don't walk past it. Run toward it. Because He's not asking for perfection. He's not waiting for you to get it all right. He's just asking for your yes. That's it. Not your resume, not your righteousness, just your yes. So if that's you, if you know this is your moment, I want you to pray this prayer with me right now. Not in your head, not silently. Say it with your mouth. Speak it into the atmosphere. Let your own ears hear the sound of your surrender. Because faith comes by hearing, and right now, heaven is leaning in just to hear you. Father God, I come to you quietly, but fully. No more running. No more walls. No more trying to earn what you've already offered. I bring you my hurt, my doubt, my guarded heart, my need to be loved but fear of being seen. All of it. I've lived too long building walls to feel safe. But I'm tired, Lord. Tired of carrying it all alone. Tired of pretending I'm okay. Tired of wondering if I'm too much or not enough. But I believe you're still here. I believe you never left. I believe you see me and you stay. Not because I'm perfect, but because you are love. So today, I surrender. I surrender my past. I surrender my defenses. I surrender my pride. I surrender the voice in my head that says I have to be strong to be accepted. Jesus, come sit with me in this place. Don't wait for me to fix it. Meet me right here, Hold the places I've hidden. Touch the wounds I've numbed. Speak peace where fear has lived too long. Heal what's still hurting. Redeem what's been wasted. Restore what's been lost. Unravel every lie. Rebuild what I've torn down in my own strength. I receive your presence. I receive your patience. I receive your unconditional love. I choose to believe that I am not abandoned. I am not forgotten. I am not a mistake. I am not disqualified. I am yours. From this moment forward, I choose truth over trauma. I choose belonging over bitterness. I choose presence over performance. I choose surrender over self-protection. And most of all, I choose you, Jesus. Be Lord of my story. Be king over my fear. Be the anchor of my soul. You have all of me, now and forever. Amen. Finally, from the deepest part of my heart, thank you. Thank you for walking with me all the way to the end of this message. The fact that you stayed means more than you know. It tells me something holy, something sacred. It tells me you're not numb. You're not hardened beyond reach. You're still tender enough to feel when heaven speaks. And that's a miracle in itself. If this word touched even the edges of your spirit, if something in you exhaled and said, "Yes, that's me," then this wasn't just a message. It was a moment, a divine encounter, a whisper from God that you're not forgotten, not invisible, not too broken to be healed. And now, I gently ask, let this message live beyond this screen. By liking and sharing this message, you help us shine the light of Christ into places we may never walk, but where your simple act of obedience can reach. You're not just supporting a channel. You're partnering in a mission of hope. Let's be a part of this ongoing journey of faith and discovery. Let's keep building something eternal together. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me. May you be blessed with peace that steadies your soul, joy that renews your spirit, and divine love that covers every part of your life. Until we meet again, keep walking in faith. Keep shining your light. You're not alone, and your journey matters here. May the peace of God guard your heart. May His favor surround your home, and may His grace carry you into every promise He's spoken over your life. Amen.